I'll let you elaborate on your background, Thomas, but you were the head of the European Regulatory Authority, Medicine Authority during the H1N1 pandemic. I'm sure you have some insights from that. I'd also just like to share with the group that Thomas is an esteemed citizen of Boston, Stockholm, and Sydney. I believe I've got all your residences there. And I think if you have a moment to add to your other comments, we'd love to hear a little bit about how Sweden is approaching this, since they have, from what I can tell, taken a distinct approach. But maybe you can start off and talk a little bit about how you believe the regulatory agencies are dealing with this, and what you think of what appears to be from the outside a certain amount of expedition in the way that they consider and approve diagnostics and drugs.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here for this broadcast. Yes, my background, as you said, I'm a former regulator. I stepped down from EMA, serving as executive director for 10 years in 2011. And before that, I was a deputy director general of the Swedish regulatory agency, so I have a very long experience as a regulator. So I'm using all my experience as a regulator when I stepped down in 2011, and I have split my business in two parts. I'm working with a regulatory company called NDA Group, both in US and Europe. And I give strategy advice to their clients, both in US and Europe, when it comes to regulatory aspects of drug development. For the moment, I'm involved in one company who developed a vaccine against corona, and also advise the company develop the therapeutics for corona. So in a way, I'm heavily involved for the moment in order to get regulatory advice how to quickly get these products to the market as soon as possible. But going back to your referral to the 2009 pandemic, and I think we're very lucky today that we had that. Because that had put the regulatory agencies all over the world in a very good position. So there was a lot of experience from 2009, and I see many of the things happen in 2009 are now happening. And I know that my old agency, for example, they have put in place an emergency health threats plan that they now have activated. There are legislative provision in order to approve medicine earlier. There are administrative procedures in order to speed up all the paperwork with applications and so on. There are quick, rapid scientific advice procedures where the company could come to the agency to give scientific advice how they should develop their drugs in this situation. They also, the experience we had in 2009 was that we really got into the international collaboration among regulators. And it was fantastic to sit at that time with weekly conferences with the major regulators in the world, including the WHO, European Commission, the FDA, and everybody, to talk about how we should speed up the vaccines and therapeutics to the market in that time. We were very lucky at that time. Because now we could rely on all this experience. So that's a good start for regulators. But looking at the pandemic in 2009 and compare that to the pandemic today, there is a big difference. You know, the H1N1 was an influenza virus. We have years of experience with influenza vaccines and virus. So we were prepared several years before 2009, and when the WHO declared the pandemic, we already have what we call a mock-up vaccine already prepared. And the company were prepared to produce this in large scale. So when the virus appeared, and we didn't know it, we thought at first it was another virus, H5N1, but it turned out to be H1N1. We were very easy to isolate it and include it in that mock-up vaccine. So a vaccine was approved, in a short period of time, just 4 or 5 months before both EMA and FDA had a vaccine on the market for mass vaccination. And that was a great success for how we managed the 2009 pandemic. Unfortunately, we are not in the same situation now, because this is not an influenza vaccine. This is a corona vaccine. And we don't have any approved vaccines. We don't have any approved therapeutics for this, antivirals. We have very little experience on the coronavirus. There was some research going on when it's come to the MERS and the SARS. Unfortunately, when both MERS and SARS disappeared, I don't think there was any commercial interest to continue with the research on a vaccine. But there is a little experience from that time available. But so now we are sitting in a situation where we have more or less starting from the beginning to develop a vaccine and a therapeutics. But the good thing is that regulators are prepared, and we know that regulators now are looking into speed up the development of vaccines and therapeutics. And but of course, we need to understand that we need to have extremely high standards of the drugs that we approve and the vaccine that will be approved. So the regulators will continue to keep to high standards. We know that it's a desperate need. So there are mechanisms available where the regulators could speed up the development and also made some leeway to the level of evidence that we need to make a decision.